Can a lone wolf fighter beat Act 1 of Baldur's Gate 3 on the hardest difficulty? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes, and here's how. But first, my self-imposed rules, because beating the game with one character on Tactician difficulty isn't hard enough, apparently. Rule number 1. No other party members. Summons and other temporary companions such as Sovereign Glut are A-OK, and Lae'zel for like one turn. Rule number 2. No multi-classing. I want the series to show off what each class is capable of just by its own strength. So in a similar vein, rule number 3. No illithid powers, other than the authority power and dialogue that we start with, to save us some minor dialogue save scumming. Rule number 4. No save scumming in the middle of combat. Outside of combat is A-OK though, I will still try and avoid it when not necessary. Rule number 5. No respecking. This is more of a personal one just because it can trivialize some challenges. Rule number 6. No barrelmancy, or chestmancy either for that matter. Basically meaning I can't cheese fights by just sneaking and piling explosive barrels in the middle of a group of enemies before combat even starts, or blocking off doors with unbreakable chests. Rule number 7. No karmic dice. True RNG only, baby. And last but not least, rule number 8. No changing the difficulty at any point. As a bonus side note, this is going to be a pretty casual playthrough where we will not complete everything there is to do and won't be 100% optimal unless necessary. With that, let's get started on character creation. I honestly didn't have much of a plan going into this character creation, but I decided to go with a fighter for this playthrough just because of how much I love Eldritch Knights in D&D 5th edition, and in previous playthroughs I saw how much throwing support items there are. For race, I ended up going with Mephistopheles Tiefling because I thought the mage hand would be helpful, and fire resistance is nice too. Though if I could choose again, I would go with Zariel Tiefling for the Thaumaturgy instead. I hit the reroll appearance button until I got this lady, and settled on her because her strange fleshy horns disgusted me. I named her Soft, short for Solo Fighter, and moved on to the prologue. As we start off this playthrough, the worst possible thing that could happen to our intense loner happens. She is given a permanent bed buddy in the form of a parasite, and alongside it, a mission, to be rid of it so she can once again be a true lone wolf. We start off with a fire lit inside of us and a clear goal in mind: escape the Nautiloid. Along the way, we meet Lae'zel, who briefly joins us before she gets the memo and kindly jumps off the side of the Nautiloid in the first 6 seconds of meeting us, so we can be as alone as possible. Thanks, Lae'zel. Truly a supportive friend. After that, we burn through the first combat with no problems. Then, head to the helm where we encounter a fight that we really have no place being anywhere near, so we jump past all our enemies and get the heck out of Dodge. We gently land on a quaint little beach where a strange glowing bundle of gifts is waiting for us. Huh, thanks. Wonder where that came from. Anyways, after that we move on to a quick little fight with a couple intellect devourers in the Crash Nautiloid, which is about as easy as you'd expect it to be. Then, we head on over to another chamber where we finish off a Mind Flayer for an easy first level up, granting us an extra 8 HP and Action Surge, an ability which will prove consistently extremely useful, as you will see in many, many future fights. Afterwards, we take a quick stroll in the countryside where we meet a handsome elf that tries to take a quick roll in the grass with us, not knowing that we're fully capable of doing that by ourselves too, thank you very much. So, we tell him to screw off and head in the direction of our first big item-based power-up. Along the way, we end up in a big brawl on the side of some tieflings and druids fighting against some good old goblins. The goblins get crushed without too much of our help, and hey, only one of the good guys died, all in a day's work for Soft. We head inside the druid enclave and watch some friendly fire go down. Then we bully a bugbear who was trying to enjoy the good weather with this terribly rude tiefling that assumed we were working for a devil, before heading deeper into the enclave to get our first big item power-up, the Ring of Flinging. The ring grants us 1d4 bonus damage whenever we throw anything. From daggers to spears to other living beings, this ring will be with us through it all. We do some exploring and some chatting around the druid enclave, save a tiefling child from a murderous druid, get a little bit of XP here and there, and then move on to our first combat with our brand new ring. A group of tomb raiders, hanging out by a chapel. Thankfully, 2 of them are hanging out right underneath the heavy stone blocks, so we get to start this fight out with a brutal throw. We then, promptly, get put to sleep. Our enemies make some embarrassing misses against us, and we get to retaliate with our brand new ring, showing off its full strength with a crit, followed by an action surge hit. Afterwards, we summon our mage hand to try and push the remaining mage off her high ground, but then she does, well, whatever this tactic is. We take pity on her and decide to just throw her back up onto the high ground where we know the laws of physics matter, to which she responds by doing this. Unfortunately for her, her evasive maneuvers don't end up working out. We take our first long rest right after, which, by the way, on Tactician takes 80 camp supplies, so I won't be able to long rest that often unless I spend ages scavenging every loose container for food, which frankly, at that point, I'd rather just play with a couple resources down, with the exception of major fights. We also follow this up by doing our first bit of save scumming. After gaining access to the chapel, we murk this guy nice and quick and get ready to fight all his friends. Thankfully, they didn't hear him screaming as we killed him because they're like 10 feet away. We start off the fight and immediately make a break for the exit.
Good idea.
We pelt them a little as we run away and are able to finish off one of them and make a quick escape. We heal up and get ready for round 2. We pick up our weapons and start the fight again. We rinse and repeat the strategy from round 1, and after a while of doing this, we're able to get their barbarian. We exit again, heal up, and head back in to finish off the remaining 3. This time, to lure them in, we just close this door and let them come to us to open it. And before you know it, we're able to pick them off one by one without too much problem. We do a bit of looting, then head to the dank crypt where our homie Withers likes to hang out with all his fog cloud creating skele-friends. Gee, I wonder why it's so dank in here. Before we head to the fight though, we enter turn-based mode and grab a spear and a key to let us in deeper. We loot this guy's sword so he's just left throwing rocks at us during the fight, and cast protection from evil and good to make all the skele-friends have disadvantage against us, which makes most of the fight a breeze, until this happens. After that, we're put in quite the pickle, but we're able to pick them off one by one until Stone Throwing Man is all that's left. And how hard can he hit, really? I mean, no. Stone Throwing Man gets his ultimate revenge for us stealing his sword and gives us our first game over. You win this one, Stone Throwing Man. Thankfully, our second attempt at this fight goes better and we're able to secure the W, but still Stone Throwing Man once again was the one to break our concentration. We talk to Withers and he doesn't seem to care we killed his friends, so we let him go. We head back into the forest where we meet these losers who think we're hot stuff. Unfortunately for them, their boss was just killed by an owlbear, so they're a little directionless. We give them direction and tell them the right thing to do would be to try and fight the owlbear again, for revenge or something, I don't know. Either way, talking to them was enough to bump us up to level 3, which means we get our archetype at last, Eldritch Knight. With this level up, we get 8 more HP, putting us up to 28 total, as well as the ability to cast spells, and most importantly, the ability to bind to a weapon, which makes it return to our hands after we throw it, an important key piece for this build so we don't have to lug around 30 javelins and daggers. For cantrips, we choose Light and Minor Illusion, and for spells, we take Protection from Evil and Good, Feather Fall, and one of the only spells we will ever really care about since our int is in the dumpster, Shield, which gives us a whopping +5 to our AC as a reaction until the start of our turn, effectively bumping up our AC to 24 for a round. We take a long rest and get ready to follow our new friends into the owlbear fight, which just doesn't go well for us. Very quickly doesn't go well for us. But I'm not one to give up easily, so I try again, and once again it goes quite poorly, so I try a bit more. But no matter what, we just can't stand up to this owlbear. So I call it quits for now and head back into the forest to gain some more XP to power up and come back later. Side note, the main reason I wanted to fight this owlbear so bad is because you can get a pretty solid spear for beating it. Unfortunately, I didn't quite yet realize that most magical properties of weapons just straight up don't work when you throw them, so this was kind of pointless in the long run. We meander back into the forest where we meet the best boy, and leave him our scent so he can find his way to our camp later. We then make our way towards the Blighted Village, which has been completely taken over by goblins. We use our illithid authority to just command our way inside without a fight, and once inside we grab this haste helm to give us a movement speed boost for the first few turns of a fight. We head up towards the windmill where we scare this little goblin horde off for some easy experience and set this disgruntled deep gnome free, who kindly tells us about his backpack which we had already looted. Afterwards, we make our way elsewhere in town to Lump the Enlightened, a strangely intelligent ogre who we need to save scum a little bit while talking to, so as to not get eaten alive. We tell him if he fights for us, we'll give him 1,000 gold after the fight, if he wins. Spoiler alert, he won't. He hands us his warhorn to call upon him when we need him and scampers off with his ogre friends, giving us a bunch of experience in the process. Then, we make our way to the goblin camp and intimidate the guards into letting us pass into the camp proper. They are also kind enough to dump all their experience on us as well. As we head into camp, we get given a lore dump by both disembodied voice and the narrator for a double whammy in exposition. And for the first and only time this run, we are glad to see Shadowheart as she puts a stop to all these people trying to join me in my head. Then she ruins it by saying this.
You need me at your side.
Naturally, we tell her to bugger off. Then we head inside and some guards tell us that we can't be here, so we tell them to bugger off too. We meet Priestess Glut, who says she can help us remove our involuntary mental mate, though we know that's a lie. Either way, we let her lead us into a more secluded spot, and we get to use one of my favorite little tricks in this run. You see, as I was trying to think of a way to kill her without everyone in the camp getting alerted, I was getting a little frustrated, and as I was thinking of what to do, I accidentally moved one of her items. She didn't like that very much, so she moved to pick it up, presumably to put it back where it was meant to go, and in the process inched ever closer to a chasm. So I moved it again. And she moved again. I moved it one more time, and she moved one more time. In a rush, I slammed down on the turn-based mode button and had her right where I wanted. Before Priestess Glut knows what's hit her, we send her to an early grave. Thankfully, she holds no grudges and is kind enough to take her key out of her pocket before she gets sent on the way down, leaving it up top for us. The game loved this tactic so much we even got the strategist inspiration for it as a fun little treat. We then make our way into Priestess Glut's chambers where an ogre guard is hanging out. Thankfully, we roll a nat 20 on this persuasion check without too much save scumming, and I get to wander about freely. We head to the back of the priestess's chambers where a puzzle is waiting for us, which once solved gives us a nice convenient entrance to the Underdark, where our next big item power-up awaits. As we enter the Underdark, we get greeted by Raphael, one of my favorite NPCs who we really don't have much to do with during this particular playthrough. He does, however, convince me to increase my graphics settings, so thanks for that, Raphael. He whisks us away to his House of Hope and says he wants to be our friend, so we tell him to bugger off, naturally. We return to a Selionite outpost and find that throwing weapons cannot in fact break the moonstone that will kill us if we leave through the front. So we sneak out the back exit and start heading deeper underground where we come across the Bullet. Bullet? Bullet? Well, whatever it's called, it kinda just ignores us and leaves after a little while, which I honestly didn't know could happen, but I'm not one to look a gift Bullet in the mouth. Then we hop our way over to a Myconid colony, only breaking our legs a little, where we meet Sovereign Spa, who tells us that there's some Dwergar that need killing somewhere nearby, and he'll give us some loot if we do. To help us in this misadventure, he also sauces up some haste spore flasks, which is a surprise tool that will help us later. We also meet this dwarf lady who sells us a permanent staple of our build, the Caustic Band, which gives us 2 extra acid damage on all our weapon attacks. Not the most impressive bonus, but still a bonus that will stick with us for the whole run. She also tells us that her husband is missing. Maybe we should look into that. If she gives us a reward, it could be nice. We found her husband. He is surrounded by Bibberbang and needs some help getting out of this predicament, so we conjure up a mage hand and use it to move his backpack closer to him. He's able to pick it up and use a Misty Step scroll stored inside to teleport to safety. We send him on his way home to his wife and teleport back to the colony to collect our reward. That's right, our second big item power-up, and another permanent staple of the build, the Gloves of Uninhibited Kushigo. A pair of gloves that gives us another 1d4 extra damage to our throwing weapons, bumping our total bonus up to 2d4 extra damage, which is kind of insane, especially with the nonsensical way the game calculates throwing damage. Sometimes I ended up with 44 extra damage instead for no discernible reason. I think it was when a weapon crushed enemies that this would trigger, but I'm not too sure honestly. Now that we've acquired another major power-up, we head back to the Blighted Village to go test out our newfound power. We're hitting for around 15 damage reliably now, and these goblins really don't stand a chance, so we take them out one by one. This guy realizes he's next on the chopping block, so he blows himself up, teleports back to where he started, and de-aggroes. He also fully heals himself, refuses to elaborate, then dies in one hit. The rest of the village goblins likewise don't stand much of a chance, so we clean up the place and gain a little bit of experience in the process, but nothing wild happens. We then head down the road a little bit where we find a couple young men yelling at a harmless old woman, so naturally we intervene, and start yelling at the old woman alongside them, only for her to disappear in a puff of smoke, as most old women do when cornered. We considered trying to track her down, but decided to run some other errands first, and also I'm scared of her. We head back to the Druid Enclave and turn in the quest for saving that tiefling kid from earlier, which gives us just enough experience to bump us up to level 4, granting us 8 more HP, an extra level 1 spell slot, alongside a new spell for which we choose Thunderwave, kinda just in case we need to shove a lot of people all at once. Most importantly, we also get our first feat, Tavern Brawler, a completely busted feat that grants us +1 to either Strength or Constitution. We choose Strength, as well as granting us our Strength mod twice to our attack and damage rolls on both unarmed attacks and thrown weapon attacks, effectively increasing both our attack roll and damage roll bonuses by a whopping 5, which is completely bonkers. We head on over to the Goblin Camp to test our new power-up, but before we start anything, we make our way to where our acquaintance Volo is being imprisoned. We set him free because he's got something we want, and tell him to meet us at our camp later. Afterwards, we go meet Minthara, one of the other leaders of the goblins, do the old moving a random object trick to get her to stand next to a ledge, then fail at shoving her, to which no one reacts, not even Minthara. We try again expecting a fight to break out, but she kinda just casually chats as she goes into the pit and dies, and no one really cares. Just another day in the life, I suppose. Either way, one goblin leader left. As we meet Dror Ragzlin, he's doing a silly little bit of necromancy on a mind flayer who could recognize us, so we do some Jedi mind tricks to make sure he doesn't catch on to us. He's a little bummed afterwards, so he takes a seat on his conveniently placed throne, and we get in shoving position. As he falls to his death, he also kindly takes out his key and places it on the ground, just like the priestess from earlier. Thanks, Dror. Our first attempt on killing all his goons goes south as soon as we get hold-personed and shortly thereafter brutally murdered. Thankfully, round 2 goes much smoother. We manage to take out the goon that hold-personed us before they can do it again, and the rest falls into place super easily. They stand no chance. Wanting more of a challenge, we head back to the Owlbear Cave and give it our best shot. During this fight, we find out a couple things that are important for the rest of the run. Number 1. My chance to hit is higher throwing with disadvantage than just attacking with melee, which is great because I also do way more damage this way. And number 2, sometimes the bound weapon just kinda breaks and just doesn't come back to my hand after throwing, which is super fun and cool, and I love this bug and it didn't make me suffer at all. Regardless, the fight is intense. We use all our resources at our disposal, jump up onto the high ground, throw everything we've got at point blank, even using a speed potion to get an extra action so we can kill it before it kills us. We also use a void bulb to deal a solid amount of damage as the owlbear falls off the high ground. Unfortunately, our speed potion wears off before we can kill the owlbear and things get touch and go for a second, but the owlbear is unable to finish us off as we're lethargic, and before it gets the chance to, we get to it first. We loot the spear we wanted, still not realizing it doesn't work how I want it to, and we exit the cave. That was a super tough fight done that we were able to beat almost entirely thanks to Tavern Brawler. We head back to the Druid Enclave to turn in the Kill the Goblin Leader's quest and generally talk to people and grab some loot, giving us some sick XP as well. Having done all the errands we need to do, we start wrapping up everything else we need to do in Act 1 before moving on. That starts with dealing with the Dwergar Sovereign Spa mentioned earlier. To do that, we meet up with Sovereign Glut and tell him he can join us for the Murder Fest. Before we initiate said Murder Fest, we take a long rest and meet up with Volo, who does some impromptu surgery on our eyeball to try and get our cranial companion out of our head. Unfortunately, it doesn't go all according to plan. So, feeling a little bad, he gives us a replacement eye that is even better than our original, allowing us to see invisible creatures. sometimes. I don't really know how seeing invisible characters works in this game. It's wonky. With that, we use Glut to raise a Dwergar zombie and head into the fight. Our first attempt at the fight goes poorly pretty fast. Our enemies raise some zombies which quickly overwhelm our allies, and afterwards we get blinded for one too many turns, fail some shoves that we really shouldn't have, and then get torn apart by the remaining Dwergar. Attempt 2 goes slightly better at first. We get a quick shove off a chasm on one of them for an easy kill, they res the zombies, and thankfully they don't all aggro on us. Then one of them just unalives himself. But then I ruin it by mispositioning myself and our enemies steal our strategy of shoving people off cliffs. As we fall 20 feet down, we also alert all the zombies waiting below, causing us to quickly get surrounded and we get got a second time. Third time is the charm, however, as this time our enemies get surprised by us. Though we manage to blow that boon by missing most of our attacks. The zombies get rezzed, but we corner one of the dwarves and we kill him before they get to us, even through being blinded. We jump up to where the head honcho is to start pelting him from on high while most of our enemies focus on Glut, and Glut in return wails on the fodder. Our reanimated corpse takes one of their zombies out before another one gets him next. And we land a solid hit on their leader before he kills Glut, and we take a moment of silence. Just a moment though. The rest of the fight, we just throw our weapon and run further up this hill until one by one we manage to take them all out. We start another quick combat to finish off the rest of the zombies that weren't aggroed earlier, which goes by quick enough. With that all finished up, we head back to Sovereign Spa to relay the good news. He rewards us with some experience and access to a hidden room. Therein, we find a book with secrets of how to operate a hidden adamantine forge. He also asks us to grab him a certain fella's head and bring it back to him. We head back to where we fought the Dwergar and steal their boat to head elsewhere in the Underdark, where the rest of the dwarves are chilling under the leadership of part of the Absolute's cult. We dip out temporarily, and the fella whose head we need briefly begs us to save him from a cave-in via telepathy, but it sounds like a personal problem to be honest, so we leave him to it while we gallivant in search of other boons. We head out to the wilderness around the Druid Enclave to pick up an amulet that grants us guidance as a cantrip, which I definitely should have done earlier, but oh well. We also grab a spider sack while there, which might just be a surprise tool to help us later. A quick detour to the north follows where we find a burning building, run inside to save a lady real quick, and get rewarded with a fun new trident to throw. Making our way back to the Dwergar outpost, which is called Grimforge by the way, we find the cave-in has been cleared. The dwarves are gone, and the fellow whose head we need is just lying dead on the ground. Thankfully, he parts with his head pretty easily, and we continue deeper into Grimforge. We grab a splint armor mold for use in the adamantine forge down the line. Then, we head into one of the side passages in the outpost to grab a shield mold for later use as well. We teleport back to the central area and find some animated armor to fight. They go down smoothly enough, though some failed athletics checks and misses make it a bit rougher than I would like. This dude was honestly one of the hardest kills in the whole run. With the animated armor cleared out of the way, we jump behind where they were to grab some mithril ore, which for some reason makes adamantine armor. I don't really get that one myself, but sure, why not? We go closer to the forge itself and try and grab some more mithril ore along the way. Unfortunately, this batch is being guarded by 80 million magma mephits, who can all cast heat metal to make my weapon the temperature of the sun. Even if we make the save, we still take buttloads of damage, and our fire resistance only goes so far. Oh, and also, we get guaranteed surprised at the start of this fight for an extra kick in the teeth, so we need to survive a whole extra round of free attacks from the enemies. As they bunched up, I throw a bomb at them, and despite the target preview saying it wasn't gonna happen, we still managed to blow ourselves up, flinging ourselves off a cliff and into a lava pool below for another game over. The next go around we start off with protection from evil and good to give the enemies disadvantage on attacks against us, but that gets broken almost immediately. Thankfully, the rest of the fight goes well as we misty step out of the way and don't hit ourselves with a bomb this time, followed up by another bomb that we also don't hit ourselves with, leaving just a few enemies for us to pick off before the fight finishes, and it doesn't get close at all, not even for a second. With the magma mephits dealt with, we get another bit of mithril, rest up, and head down to the forge proper. We pop in the splint mold and the mithril ore. We pull the forge lever to get everything into position. And now all we need is just a little bit of magma, and oh no. Wait. That's right, boys and girls, it's boss fight time. Soft and Mage Hand versus Grim, a super tough construct that deals loads of damage and is immune to most damage types unless superheated in magma, in which case they've got vulnerability to bludgeoning, a damage type that we seldom deal. We start the fight by Misty stepping to a safe spot and throwing our spear to get its attention. It makes its way through the magma towards us, and our Mage Hand slams down on the lever, dealing a whopping 130 bludgeoning damage. Unfortunately, this summons some magma mephits, and you know how I feel about magma mephits, so we summon some backup of our own to make it a proper brawl. With Lump and his goons showing up, the tables are tipped more in our favor, but this fight still isn't over yet, especially with the interesting survival instincts the ogres have. Thankfully, Grim also isn't a fan of magma mephits, so it spends its turn slamming one, getting superheated and also dunking one of the ogres just fully in the lava. He's fine, don't worry. His pal, however, is not. Oh shoot, never mind, neither is he, once Grim is through with him. Now that the construct is superheated again, we just need to get its attention and lure it to the center. We position ourselves, throw our trident, and... wait, what? It just hit nothing. Like, literally nothing. It just stopped in midair. Good lord, Grim has more tricks up its sleeve than we thought. That's okay, this is what we've been saving our action surge for. Unfortunately, we get Grim's attention a little too well, and they just meander right on over the center of the forge. Lump, to the rescue, pulls the construct back on over to the side for one last heroic stand before falling. But with that, Grim gets positioned right in the center for an easy hammer fall, dealing 148 bludgeoning damage this time. With it down to just me and our cruel clobbering construct, this forge starts to feel all too small. Feeling desperate, I risk it all on a potion of speed and lure Grim to the edge of the arena. We fail an important saving throw and get knocked prone, causing us to have significantly less movement speed on our next turn. Soft does her best to heal through these hits and stands right where the hammer falls, provoking an all too close attack of opportunity in the process. With that, we've got Grim right where we want it. We jump past it, causing another near miss. We make it to the lever, and... Grim falls. It's our victory on the first attempt at only level 4. We get some mighty good spoils of war from this fight. First up on the list is the Grimskull Helm, a helmet that gives us redundant resistance to fire damage, but also makes it so we can't be crit and can cast Hunter's Mark once per long rest, a spell that grants us 1d6 extra damage on our attacks. This will be another permanent staple of our build. Next up is the Adamantine Splint Armor, which has a base AC of 18, reduces all damage we take by 2, and causes enemies to be sent reeling for 3 turns if they hit us, which gives them -1 to attack rolls for each turn remaining of reeling, and also makes it so we can't be crit. Another long-term staple acquired, and an insane boost to our survivability. Last but not least, the Adamantine Shield, which likewise prevents crits against us, lets us shield bash enemies who hit us as a reaction, possibly sending them prone, and to top it off this time when an attack misses, our attacker gets sent reeling. Truly some insane power-ups for Soft, and the rest of our run. We head back to Spa and give him that one dude's head from earlier, and he starts calling us Peacebringer. I don't know if that's ironic or what, but it feels in poor taste. More importantly, he gives us enough XP to level up to level 5. With level 5, we get 8 more HP for a whopping 44 total, alongside one of our biggest power-ups in the entire run, an extra attack to go with our attack action each turn, effectively doubling our damage output. Now that the Grimforge is done, we've got one last major thing to do before Act 2. Go beat up that old lady from earlier and extort her into giving us a piece of her scalp. We make our way to Granny's house and interrupt her tea party. She turns into a giant monster woman, as old ladies are wont to do. She disappears, and in our frustration, we break her garden gnomes. We follow her down into her little hideout where we find some more tea party guests, but with our extra attack we rapid fire take care of them like never before. Now that we're down in the heart of Auntie Ethel's lair, we down an invisibility potion, sneak on over to the controller from Marina's cage to set her free, because I'm starting to get the feeling she's not a willing Tea Party guest. Then, we get into position to beat up Ethel. We somehow don't surprise her here. I have no idea how surprise rounds work, but this feels like it should have been like at least a little surprising. And she manages to summon 5 clones, and all 5 of them get to go before me in initiative, which was a little spooky, especially when we get poisoned by one of them. It isn't hard to figure out which one is real though, since Ethel forgot to make her clones have the same health as her. So on our turn, we just pelt the real one with our trident again and again, thanks to extra attack and action surge. And despite being poisoned, we hit all of our attacks. This knocks her just below her health threshold she needs to be at, and she surrenders immediately after. We intimidate her into giving both a piece of her scalp for a sick power-up, and also setting Marina free. Constitution is our stat of choice for this buff since it increases the modifier to a +3, which also increases our total max HP to 49. We talk to Marina, tie up some loose ends, and go back to the Grimforge so we can go to the Shadowcurse lands, and with it, Act 2. Act 1 is done, and we are ridiculously strong. Having gotten loads of powerful gear, both our offense and defense is otherworldly. Act 2 should be quaking in its boots. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you want to see Act 2, and let me know in the comments what class you want to see me do next, as well as any other tips or tricks you'd like to see me use in the future. And I hope you have a good one.